Good afternoon, friends. I'm John Hart, and today I want to take you back to a time when the gospel didn't come through microphones, live streams, or podcasts. It came on horseback. It came through mud, rain, snow, and danger. And it came through men called circuit riders. And I'll tell you something personal. Several years ago, I stood behind the pulpit at Sam Black Church in West Virginia, one of the oldest Methodist churches in the mountains. And as I looked out over those pews, I thought, if I could just have the faith and commitment of Sam Black. And you know, that feeling never left me. Circuit riding started in the late 1700s when the Methodist movement exploded across the American frontier. There weren't enough preachers, and the settlements were too scattered for regular church services. So John Wesley and Francis Asbury came up with a plan. They'd divide the frontier into circuits, they'd put a preacher on horseback, and they'd have him ride from cabin to cabin, settlement to settlement, preach wherever people gathered, homes, barns, fields, mills, move constantly, never staying long, and return every few weeks to the same places. These men traveled 200 to 500 miles a month, often alone, often in brutal weather, often with nothing but a Bible, a hymnal, and the clothes on their backs. Many died young, but they lit the fire of Christianity across Appalachia. Peter Cartwright was one of the most famous circuit riders in American history, a man with iron in his spine and thunder in his sermons. He was born in Virginia. He was raised on the Kentucky frontier. He was converted during the Great Revival, and he rode circuits for decades. He fought sin with the boldness that made him legendary. Cartwright wasn't polished. He was raw, fiery, and fearless. He preached in cabins, taverns, camp meetings, and open fields. He confronted drunks, gamblers, and troublemakers head on. One story says he once grabbed a violent man by the collar during a service and said, "The Lord wants your heart, but I'll take your hide if you don't behave." He later became a state legislator and even ran against Abraham Lincoln for Congress. He lost, but he never stopped preaching. Cartwright was the kind of man who could ride into town with no church, no congregation, and no welcome, and leave behind a revival. Sam Black was a Methodist circuit rider in the early 1800s whose ministry left such a mark on Greenbrier County that the community named a church after him, Sam Black Church, built in 1901. Black rode the mountains long before the church existed. He preached in homes, barns, and schoolhouses. He traveled through storms, crossed rivers, and climbed ridges to reach isolated families. He was known for a gentle spirit, a deep faith, an unshakable commitment, and preaching that comforted the poor and challenged the proud. When I stood at that pulpit, I was standing in a place built on the back of his ministry, a place where his footsteps once echoed, where his voice once filled the room, where his faith still lingers in the wood. Sam Black didn't just preach sermons, he built communities. Circuit riders lived hard lives. They slept in barns, cabins, or under the stars. They ate whatever families could spare. They faced wolves, bears, sickness, and freezing weather. They rarely saw their own families. They earned almost no money. They buried the dead, baptized the young, and married the hopeful. And they preached 700 to 800 sermons a year. Many died before age 35, but they carried the gospel into places no one else would go. They were the spiritual backbone of Appalachia. Standing in Sam Black Church, I felt whatever circuit rider lived. Faith that doesn't wait for comfort, commitment that doesn't depend on applause, a calling that rides through storms because someone, somewhere, needs hope. If you, or any of us, could have even a fraction of their dedication, we'd change the world around us. Thank you for joining me this afternoon. As always, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and remember, the mountains keep their secrets, but they never forget. If you enjoy these podcasts, please share, like, and subscribe. For information on and sales of my books, go to johnhartauthor.com. God bless you, and I'll see you on the next ridge.